Okay, hello. Welcome, everyone, to, unbelievably, our 5th behind-the-scenes special. I'm J. Michael DeAngelis, co-creator, co-executive producer, co-writer, and co-director, but sole marketing manager of Mission Rejected.
Thank God.
Indeed.
You don't want me messing around with that marketing.
No. Good God, no.
I truly don't. And I'm joined today by my two partners in the porch room. I've got Pete Barry.
Hello, universe.
And I've got John P. Dowgin.
Greetings all. Greetings all this fine, sunny, warm, at least where I am, spring Friday.
And, of course, also a core part of the writing and creative team is Paige Klaniecki. We'll be hearing from her, as well as a whole bunch of our cast members later on in the show. So after 5 years of after 4 years of behind-the-scenes shows, we weren't quite sure what people wanted to know anymore. We had been interviewed. We had interviewed each other. We had the cast interview each other behind our backs. We interviewed other podcasters. And we were just not sure what we could talk about in this 5th year. So we threw it out to the audience. We put a poll out there. We asked our Patreon members. We put a poll out on our social media, put out a call for questions. And we got a lot of great questions from our fans. So today we're going to do our best to answer our fan questions. Well, we're going to dive into some specific questions, but we also got some great questions for our cast, and they were kind enough to record their answers. So I'm going to throw it over to our cast, who all have some thoughts about what their characters look like.
Hey everyone, this is Dave Stanger. I play Bowden Moncrief, and the first question I see is, how do you view your own character physically? I think I might have mentioned something along this line in a previous behind-the-scenes episode, but I tend to picture him as sort of like this amalgamation of a couple different celebrities that I know. And the one that is foremost in my brain for Bowden is Rob Lowe. You can Google who he is if you're not sure, but he's definitely who I first picture any time I'm trying to kind of get into character for Bowden. And sometimes maybe a little bit of a younger Alec Baldwin, and maybe to a lesser extent John Hamm, but someone of their ilk, I think, for Bowden. Someone I tend to picture some guy with dark hair, chiseled looks, kind of an aging pretty boy. But yeah, I think Rob Lowe would be a great touchstone if you're wondering who I picture for Bowden.
And so this is a really good question. I don't think I really have very clear pictures for any of the characters in my head. And maybe that's because I don't think I have the most visual imagination. I think it's more conceptual. So the characters for me are kind of like in dreams, when you have like a general wiggly outline of a person with general features emerging, but they're not like fully formed. And I think Gloria is even harder for me to picture than any of the other characters, because I don't really see myself as Gloria. Like in my head, she's just a fully separate person from me. She has different dreams and different fears and different tendencies, and I'm just playing her. But at the same time, it's also weird to think of my voice coming out of someone who looks very different from me. So it's just hard to picture. And I don't know, maybe that's a cop-out, but I don't think I have a clear answer. But that's why I really love seeing the fan art so much. I really love seeing how all the fans and how you all see her and bring her to life, because that really helps me fill in these gaps that I have in my imagination. And it's fun to just see all the very different versions of her that come out.
This is Faith Dowgin, and I play Zelda Anders. These are really fun questions. So the first one from Jace from the Philippines is, how do you view your own character physically? I think I'd have to say that Zelda is definitely taller than I am, because I am only 5'2", and I have always wanted to be taller. But she's not super tall, maybe 5'6", a nice average girl height. And she's fit because even though she hates going to the gym, she hates Pilates, she hates cardio, she knows that she probably will be in some sort of situation where she should probably be strong and tough. She does love kickboxing. Zelda's a big fan of kickboxing. And she wears amazing clothes, like Calvin Klein and basically Calvin Klein. Basically, her entire wardrobe is Calvin Klein because it's always in fashion. It's comfortable, it's practical, and yeah. Shoes. Oh, shoes. So she wears Converse a lot, and practical shoes. Zelda's a practical gal.
Hey, this is Bob Killion. I play the Admiral and a host of other characters. Jace, for me, the Admiral is as big and as imposing in person as he is on the podcast in his voice. When I do the Admiral, I do a lot of hand gestures and moving around and a lot that just I throw myself around when doing the Admiral because I feel like the Admiral is so imposing physically in my mind. And so, yeah, which is really fun to play. I really enjoy it. I'm pretty sure there's a picture on the Mission Rejected website of me doing facial expressions or something with the Admiral.
Hi, everyone. This is Nazli, and I am the voice of Mackenzie McGrath. So how do I view McGrath physically? I think McGrath is an enigma. Hard to figure out physically. I think she is surprisingly fit and strong and quick, even though she does absolutely nothing to train herself. Like, train physically, she does nothing. I don't think she works out. Her workout is grabbing another bag of chips, but I don't think she ever has trouble as much as Skip does whenever there is an exercise involved. So she's everything I wish I was, basically. I think McGrath is genetically gifted, that she doesn't need to lift a finger, but she's so strong.
This is Chris Klaniecki. I use he, him as pronouns, and I play Skip Granger, who also uses he, him as pronouns. And I'm very happy to be here answering some of the questions that we received for this special episode. Jason, that's a great question. Really fair one, too, especially since we exist in the audio world. Honestly, for me, I am so delighted and humbled every time I get to see one of our listeners who has some artistic flair do a rendition of any of our characters, including Skip. Every time I see a new Skip, I think this is fantastic. When it comes to how I view my own character, Skip Granger, physically, honestly, at this point, between seasons 5 and 6, it's essentially the conceptual midpoint between the various iterations of Skip Granger that I've seen in the artwork. Dating from season 1 all the way through recently, I just kind of picture, a hodgepodge, if you will, of those sorts of features all together. And that just, makes me smile. That being said, if there are any listeners out there listening to this particular episode who have some artistic flair and are thinking, I haven't seen a version of Skip that agrees with what I have in my head in terms of the image. This is, of course, not a request, not by any stretch of the mind, but if you're looking to change how I view Skip Granger, I would say add your own take on Skip Granger to the mix, and we'll go from there. No, I'm not asking you to make pictures of Skip Granger, I promise. If you do, it will certainly be incorporated in my own sort of, mental image of the character. That's a guarantee.
And we're back.
Well, thank you, cast, for those insightful answers. We're going to be hearing again from them shortly. But let's take a question for us. So Wedge from Minneapolis asks us, what's changed in production process or pipeline since between season 1 and season 5?
Well,
A lot.
we know we didn't know what the hell we were doing when we started.
That is true.
And if we had, frankly, would we have started this? No.
And there are some lessons we still haven't learned. Like there are
Yes.
a lot of
There are some lessons I refuse to learn.
there are a lot of creators who we talk to who are just aghast that we do not have a complete season written before we start releasing episodes.
I was like, "What? Who's aghast at what?" And
Oh,
then you
everybody's
said it, and I was
aghast.
like, "Oh,
Everybody's
yes,
aghast
I've got
at us
some
at all the
aghast.
time. All
I've
the
got some
time for a
gasps
while.
of dismay. Yeah.
The other thing is the division of labor has changed quite a bit. Seasons 1 and 2, Pete edited and mixed every episode. Every single
And 3.
3.
Don't take it away from me, man.
Yeah, for sure,
wasn't
John.
it?
It was season 4 you started sharing.
Was season 4? Oh, I could have sworn. I could have sworn the CIA
They are
episode was the start
burned
of season
into
3.
my memory, my
Oh,
No,
but you're
that's
probably
the start
right.
of
No,
season
but it's all
4.
good.
You're right. That was season 4. So yeah, so Pete edited and mixed all of the first 3 seasons, which was rapidly becoming a
untenable.
completely
well,
untenable.
Yeah, it was fine, right? Like, yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
But then John, stepped up really well.
Well,
John,
season
you
3
can
was when I
continue your own
started
story.
editing and mixing the Patreon bonuses to take
right,
that
yeah,
off your plate.
100%,
That's what I was
yeah,
thinking
yeah.
of. And after I'd cut my teeth on Reaper doing that, yes, the CIA at the CIA episode was the first one
right.
that I mixed entirely on my own. And since then we've gone into an mostly alternating. Pete does one, I do.
Yeah, this
I do
year
one.
I think you gave me some leeway to like grab a couple episodes. I was like, can I do this one?
Yeah, so
And,
if it's an episode that you wrote that would normally have been me to edit, like which one was it?
I think I wonder. So I'll have to think back on this, but I think 509 might have been the first episode that I wrote. And I'm like, okay, John, you can take this one.
Maybe.
I could be wrong on that one
Maybe.
though. There might be another one that I.
But
was
there
like,
was
no,
one
you
that
can-
there was one that you wrote that you definitely edited 2 in a row because
There was,
was
one because
clear in
I
your head.
did.
I'm
oh,
trying
wait,
to remember
no,
which
you're
one
right.
it was.
509. I did take 509.
Which one
There
was
a
509?
different one. 509 was the cornfield one.
That's right. That's
pulled-
right. Because you had the idea for
Goldmere.
what the sounds of the missile base were.
Yeah, I didn't want to have to burden you with creating a North by Northwest
Yes.
spoof where
Yes.
I was like, I know I have some plugins that maybe will make this plane sound like it's coming
Yes.
right at you, and I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's a huge change between season 1 and season 5 that we've not mentioned, which is every episode from the first episode through 202 was recorded in my apartment with the cast.
That's right.
As many of the cast members together as possible, and then we would grab. And even then, so like if a Philadelphia-based cast member couldn't come to the record, they would still come to my apartment to record at a later date. So if Dave couldn't come on a Sunday, he would come like the next Tuesday after work and do it. Or if Ashley had to miss one or whatever, we would get together and record at my apartment.
Except for the few unlucky ones who recorded at your place of work, like poor Natty Leach, who almost got arrested doing Valerian fighting Zelda on a motorboat.
Yep. And when that was reported, the response was, no, that's just Michael and Natty. It's fine. So, yeah, and then our guests would have to record. And that was a challenge, particularly when we, early on, because we would have, clean or at least equally equal. I don't want to say equally bad, but everybody sounded the same because we all recorded in the same place on the same kind of mics.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then we would have guests that maybe had much lower quality.
Right.
So everybody in the room would be of, sort of balanced because it was all in the same room and on the same kind of mics. But a guest coming in early on some people were recording into their telephones, and it was very, very noticeable. So we learned, all right, we've got to be able to get, if they don't have equipment, we've got to be able to bring them to my place or John's place or Pete's place where we have equipment. And then, of course...
And I remember I had a huge problem being like, I could hear the echo in your apartment. And I was like, how do we get rid of this echo? And I won't go into the details of what I did when I came to record episode 3 and 4. But I was like, can we stop the echo in this apartment? We learned to live with it. It was like, yeah, you know what? It's fine.
Right, particularly early on when like 99% of the cast had the same echo, right? So it was like they're all in the same place. But, then as I'm sure everybody knows, like we went to record the 3rd episode of season 2, and the word pandemic was in the air, and only a handful of us got together to do that one.
That was Schweinfeld, wasn't it?
Schweinfeld, yeah. So John, you were there. Caden was there. I think it was Bob and Paige. Paige, who had already moved to LA, was back visiting, and then got stuck in Philadelphia because she couldn't travel back because of the pandemic for a long time. So we had to scramble to decide how to go on. Everyone had the will and desire to go on. So we shipped everybody microphones, and we taught everyone how to use Audacity or Reaper, and that's how and then we all just got on. We would still get together, and it's still the way it works. We get together on our Discord channel, and we record as many people together as possible, even though everyone is in their own place. And there's a question about this later, so we'll put a pin and we'll come back to how that process works. And it's a double-edged sword. I think I think we absolutely do lose a little something. It's a little intangible something when you're all in the room together, right? It's like John says, almost everybody in the cast is a stage actor. They know how to play off each other, and they do it well virtually, but something else happens in the room. You can see each other's faces. You get that energy that can be very helpful. Now, this is not to say that it's just different. It's just different. It's not better or worse. It's just different. I miss seeing everyone. I miss the camaraderie.
But once you move to the remote version, we have been able to incorporate a lot more, like just have the mindset to incorporate people from all around the world.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
People from England, people from Germany, we get people from all over to be on the show, and it is a little more standardized when everybody's talking into their USB mic. Then it's like I gotta balance the environment of Mike's apartment versus someone who recorded this in Ontario, right? So there is like some, I would like to say that there is some positive that comes out of it, that you're like, you sort of broaden your horizons in terms of what this recording process could be. And in certain cases, you're like, well, the recording didn't come out quite as well as I would hope from this person across the country. But you either learn techniques to sort of overcome that, or you start to realize, like, I always strive to get the best possible audio into an episode. But there have been a couple times where you're just like, you just gotta thread the needle, and and like you said, John, like sometimes you're like, there's a workaround. This person's always on comms.
Yeah.
Like we'll just do that more. Yeah.
And if you drop in a sufficiently loud background ambiance, that tends
covers a lot of
to,
sins.
as long as it's not drowning anybody out, it tends to cover a lot of. Also, I have found audiences, as long as it's not egregious, as long as you're not actively like having to change the volume of whatever you're listening it on every time a different character comes on, audiences are very forgiving. I've noticed it with myself. Like some of the other shows that I listen to, they don't record in the same room, and you can tell.
Right.
And like an episode of a show comes on and I'm listening and a new character shows up, I just go, oh, I bet that actor was recording remotely, or on their own one day, and then
Well,
it
I think that
goes out of my
that's-
mind, and I go right back into the illusion of the show.
There's no one way to do this, and
Exactly.
a lot of people, we've talked before, there's different ways to do it too. Some people say just put it all on the actors and say, here's the script, give me 3 different versions of each line and I'll pick. Other people get on and direct, so it's different. And this is a nice dovetail because we've actually started to address this already, but here's our second question. Kim from Virginia, a.k.a. Liz Lemon, asks, how does recording from different locations impact your process, and what do you adjust?
So I am gonna try and stop, and I do this at least once in every episode, and I'm gonna try to stop writing lines that multiple characters say in sync at the same time.
Thank God, man.
Because
No.
that is
You
no,
do
no, no.
you.
That, no,
You
no, no.
do
That's
you.
always if the actors aren't in the same room reading together. That never works out.
That trick never works.
No. So to Mike's point, yes. Sometimes we put it all on the actors. Like you said, we give us 3 readings of each line. David S. Deere is the best at that. David S. Deere is absolutely is just a master of
the 3
take because they're all completely different. They're all completely valid, and it's never more than 3. It's never more than 3.
Yeah.
I'll tell you an amazing David S. Deere story. Because he featured so prominently in 512, he said, I'd love to do it with you if you could direct me. My pleasure. I love hanging out with David. So we got on and we did it, and we spent a long time, not an hour and a half, 2 hours, going through all of 512, and I gave him direction and suggestions, and then we got to the end, and he went, none of that recorded. I was like, oh, no. He was like, no problem. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to reset up my recording. I remember your notes, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it just like and it was exactly like we
I was
did
gonna
it.
say I don't remember. I remember it being
was
a pretty traditional David.
It was
David
he
Trout.
just and he knocked it out in about 30 minutes. He texted me, okay, it's done, because he just retained what we had done. He's
I
just
can absolutely
a
hear
pleasure.
It. I can hear it in
And-
his voice. He is a Vulcan. I'm convinced David S. Deere is a Vulcan. What I've noticed, and Pete, I don't know if you've noticed this either, is David. You obviously listen to everybody's whole track before you pick and choose.
Yeah.
David's best stuff can come anywhere. It could be the first read, it could be the second read, it could be the third read.
Mm-hmm.
Chris is almost always the third read.
Oh.
Nazla
yeah.
is almost always the first read.
Okay.
Like it takes
Before we
Chris
mess it up.
It takes Chris to well, not if you're directing them. If you're directing them, it's usually the last lead. But if they're recording on their own, it takes Chris 2 reads to get into it. Yeah. And Nazla just nails it immediately and then overthinks it.
No, and I'm serious. Like, I have definitely had people that I'm directing, and I'm like, do it exactly. Like, I can be a very exacting director. Sorry, everyone, but and I'm like, okay, no, it's just like this, and then I get back to the thing, and I'm like, no, goddamn, I was wrong. It was the first one. No, I screwed them up entirely. But yeah, just yeah, I mean, there's, I guess I'm trying to get back to the question of just what are the problems in general of getting all the voices to match. Obviously levels are your first basic issue, right? How does everybody sound? You can't, just trusting your own ears and not necessarily trusting the levels on your thing, because sometimes people have qualitatively, if I was standing way back here and yell at the top of my lungs, that might not sound as loud as if I go right up in the camera and just start talking like this. So there is a perceptual process that you have to do, right? Not just make everything the exact same level. Especially when you're doing drama, right? If you're doing a podcast that's just an interview podcast, I don't know, this one, you're probably going to want everybody to, you just sort of level them out. People tend to talk to each other at a single level.
What?
So you can, yeah, exactly, just like that. But like, went into Gordon Cole territory there for a minute. But like the best advice I ever got on that I ever read on recording was someone quoting George Martin, the not George R.R. Martin, but the Beatles producer, who said, "All you need is ears," and that's it. You just have to listen very carefully to everything and be like, and unfortunately, in the day and age that we're in, like, you got to kind of listen to it on different things, like listen to it in your car and on your, to make sure everything is like sounding the same on all
my car
systems.
is where mixes go to die.
Let's talk about that for a second, because we all experienced that, and I have two thoughts about it. One, it actually goes back to another change in the production process. When we were all recording in person, we'll have season 1 fans will remember a credit additional live mixing by Karen Yang. Karen, Dr. Lagrange Yang. People may remember, but if they don't, Karen was my student assistant when she was a college student on my work podcast. And when we started Mission Rejected, particularly because, Pete, you weren't available to come and do the first episode.
Right.
And I was like, I can't direct it and listen, so I need Karen.
Right.
So I said, Karen, I'd love to hire you on the side if you want to come and do this on the weekends once a month. And she was, excited to do it. And so we always had Karen on headphones, and she could be there to say to you or me, I don't know, Chris sounds too distant, or, that didn't sound quite right. The levels look off. That was so helpful, right? Just to have the second pair of ears. It's something I struggle with when I'm directing over Discord, because of course then we're hearing it all through Discord,
you can't control
which
those
is not
levels.
which is not what the recording's going to sound like. Discord is compressing it. There's a delay, so sometimes we get a recording and it's much softer than it sounded on Discord, or it's much hotter, or it's right. So that's a challenge for sure. But I had a second point. I wonder what it was. I don't know. Oh, just the whole idea of, so whenever Pete and John are working on an episode, they'll be close to a final draft, or there'll be a first listenable draft.
Right.
And sometimes we can have 3 different reactions to it, depending on so I'll be like, well, I listened on my really nice stereo speakers and it sounded great. And John will be like, I listened in my car and it sounded terrible. And Pete will be like, I listened on my computer and it was okay. Or sometimes it'll be like, oh, I listened on my really nice stereo speakers and it pointed out all the flaws. But I put it on my headphones and it sounded great. So I know it's sort of a mystery, but like how do we try and adjust for that? Because our audience are all going to be listening on different things. A lot of people will be listening on headphones. A lot of people will be listening in their cars. Some people might put it on their stereo or their computer or their TV. It's like, how do we adjust for all of that?
So do I optimize it for the car, which is where many people are going to be listening, or optimize it across platforms, or do I just keep it the way it is and be like, if you're listening on headphones, you're really getting what I was going for? And I got to be honest, I don't land on one side of that argument or another. Sometimes the show is a little it's a little all over the place, because like sometimes the episodes are streamlined to go in the car, and sometimes they're like, this is an effect that I really want you to hear. If you put on headphones and listen to this whole show, I want you to hear Minnie McGrath land on your shoulder. And I don't want to lose that because it's too cool. I know that is probably counter to, like, I mean, I don't want to call it like a studio mentality, or like a mentality where you're like, I want it to be the broadest possible audience. We want a broad audience. We want this to reach as many people who enjoy the story as possible. But sometimes you have to make little compromises like that and be like, this sounds better on headphones, and I'm just going to let it go. Because it doesn't sound bad in the car, right? but maybe it sounds a little too loud, or it's like something disappears or something like that. And you can't have something disappear entirely, right? But these are all little compromises you have to make, and the fact that we live in an era when not everybody is, I guess, if we go back to where we started, like loving like the time that I think the three of us have a little bit of a love for before we were born. Like, not everyone is sitting down with the family, turning on the radio, and like hearing it through their, I was gonna say Magnavox. What the heck did they have back in the day? But you know, they're not listening to the Victrola right around the so. People are listening in different ways, and there's the world in which you optimize for all of them, or maximize for all of them, or optimize for one. Right.
This is all to say, I am pushing very hard, and I'm just making this announcement to the two of you right now. Season 6, mixed in Dolby Atmos, every episode.
Okay. Yep. We'll take it under advice.
Thank you. Those are some of our challenges. Let's throw it back over to the cast, because someone had a question for them about what was most challenging or most memorable about their character in Season 5.
The second question is from August from Scotland. August asks, what is the most challenging part of playing your character this season, and what was the most fun thing you got to do with them? Without a doubt, hands down, I didn't even have to think about it. My most fun thing my character did this season was the Christmas Eve episode. It was absolutely delightful to record the episode of Zelda getting Ebenezer Scrooged. And as always, there were some light emotional moments in it, and I always love when I get to do that. The most challenging part of playing my role this season had nothing to do with the character or the writing, because the writing is always fantastic, in my humble opinion, and Zelda is always a delight to play. The most challenging part actually was finding the time to do the character and the writing the justice that I felt it deserved. This year in particular, over this past season, I have started traveling a lot for my job. And I'm super lucky that I get to do that. I love to travel. It's something I have always wanted to do. But it has put a little bit of a crimp in my style as far as having the time to do recording sessions. I don't always get to join the online read-throughs that we do, and I miss bonding with the cast. So that's really been the hardest part. My schedule has left me sort of doing things in a vacuum, sometimes feeling like I'm very last minute, and if I had more time or if I could go to the read-through with the cast, I'd feel more connected and would be more satisfied with what I'm sending out to the guys and to Paige. And to their credit, no one has complained. They're all very supportive, and they give me awesome notes that I can use whenever I get the time to sit down and record something. And I hope that I'm able to organize my life a little better in the future.
August, I get to play so many characters on Mission Rejected, and that's one of the wonderful things about my role. And as the Admiral, I think one of the big challenges is finding the balance between the Admiral's silliness and his seriousness, because he is certainly very silly. He's a ridiculous character. He's always cracking jokes. He's always like making little asides, but he's also trying to get revenge, and he's very serious about what he does. And so sometimes that just works. Like, he can be silly and serious, and that's maybe what makes him scary. But finding the right balance is always a tough thing with the Admiral. And August, for you and all of our Scottish listeners out there, I loved playing Lord Duncan Land this season on episode 5-8. Lord Duncan Land. I loved playing that, and I loved. I definitely took Sean Connery as an influence for that. As like a Scottish like spy, it seemed like it was right there to do like a Sean Connery. That was a really fun episode to do. I think that a big challenge for me this season was playing Zelda's father, Thrash Anders. Incidentally, it's the similar challenge that I had with playing Ganon, which was also a character from Zelda's past, which is that both of those characters really had a strong, an outlook that I didn't necessarily agree with. And that's difficult to play as an actor. And both of them had their things that were kind of silly about them. And normally I'm, kind of playing silly characters where I can be very animated. And they have that too, but they also have to be very serious about their position and in a way that sets them apart from the other characters, especially Zelda, particularly Zelda in these scenes. And that's difficult to do, but it's a challenge that I really like and something that I think is really powerful for me as an actor to try to do.
So I think the most physically challenging part of playing Gloria in any season is the fighting and the action sequences. I always feel a little self-conscious doing it because I usually record in my apartment building, and I'm sure that my neighbors can hear me being very loud. And also after 5 seasons, it's kind of hard to come up with new ways to grunt and like yell and karate chop. And also the scene in Golden Ear this season on top of the plane was tough for similar reasons because, like I said, I live in an apartment building, so yelling without like really yelling is challenging. Yeah. And then the most fun thing is tough because it's really all fun. Yeah, it's all really fun. But I think I'll say, to answer the question, in Noose is Off, when Gloria is standing in for Cressida and Bowden's play, it was fun to just kind of make her bad at it. Like, Gloria's become really competent over the years, which is great, but I've always felt really strongly that she should always be bad at some things, no matter how smart or trained she gets. And so one of the things I've tried to do consistently is that she's just not a great actor or performer. And I really like that because acting is kind of Bowden's thing, so their skills are just really well balanced and they don't step on each other's toes. So if you listen back, usually when Gloria is undercover as someone, like, other than someone who's super similar to her, she has like a really over-the-top accent or like a ridiculous voice, kind of like that's where Schnazzy Splenda came from, or the old lady in the season 1 finale. Like, these are just kind of caricature-y voices that aren't like real people, and like that's just the best she can do because she's not a great actress. So in Noose is Off, I got to explore this even more because she's not approaching acting as like undercover work. She's approaching acting as like kind of an art and a craft, and she knows what good acting is and she really respects it, but she just like really doesn't have that in her, in my head. So that was a fun line to walk, of her trying her hardest to be a good stage performer, but she's just really out of her depth. And so it comes out as like broad and overacted, and she doesn't have it in the same way that Bowden does. And that's one of the things she loves and respects and admires so much about Bowden too.
I think the most challenging part for me was the tail end of the season, meeting Orville Granger for the first time. This is a moment that we've been building up to, I think, not just across season 5, but there have been kind of like, little breadcrumbs in previous seasons hinting that Skip, the character, has this sort of estranged relationship with his father, but clearly, has very fond memories of his mother. So there was kind of a lot riding on this, and I did a lot. Pete Barry, who does a lot of our sound editing, and other folks in the porch room know that there were a lot of takes of a lot of those lines between Skip and Orville, just doing my best to make sure that our producers had a rich palette of things to choose from to hopefully stitch something together. The most fun thing I got to do with Skip this season, I think, has to be the Live and Let Dice, the Dungeons & Dragons episode. It was especially gratifying for me because on the side, in my personal life, I am a dungeon master for an actual campaign that has been running since 2019. It's at this point 6 years old, going on 7. One continuous campaign, one continuous story. From the cast here, J. Michael and Paige have both been characters in it since 2019. So it was really, really fun, invigorating, enjoyable, and satisfying to be able to bring my love of that game and what it brings to my own friendships that are really near and dear to me to the show. It's just something that I hope Skip and the rest of the crew would actually enjoy together once they work through their kinks, and hopefully is something that some of our listeners, that resonated with them too. What makes that game so special and so fun. Thanks for the question. I also recognize, August, that episode took place in Scotland, and you're asking from Scotland, so I didn't mean for it, obviously. That would have been my answer regardless, but hopefully that answer hits home for you, if you will. Excuse the pun.
I think that my answer for both parts of this question are the same. Bowden is a ball to play. He's this larger-than-life character, and he gets like 12 jokes an episode, and it's phenomenal. But it's also really interesting when he's afforded opportunities to be vulnerable. He does have this very guarded personality about his insecurities. And I think, like a lot of celebrities, he wants to present this very successful front. And it's played to great comedic effect, too, with all of the name dropping and the embellishing of his credentials and everything. But when he does drop that kind of actory facade that he greets the world with and gets to be kind of real with people, unsurprisingly, most of them are with Gloria, who he's closest to, but that's a joy to play because you get to explore a facet of a character and you see this very well-rounded person underneath all that. It can be challenging, I think, in that you got to work a little bit harder as an actor and dig a little bit deeper to strike the right chord. But I think nowhere else was that apparent than when Bowden and Gloria decide to get married. I love that scene. As I understand it, Paige handled most of the dialogue in there, and I think she knocked it out of the ballpark. I hope my acting rose to the level of both the writing and the acting in that scene. But yeah, I think that scene in particular in this season was both the most challenging, but absolutely the most rewarding.
I wouldn't say there are a lot of challenging parts because we have so much fun. I love the absurdity of the things that our characters are doing, but there was one part. It was the episode where they found all these missing objects from the theater in the underground sewers. I thought that was so gross. Just even them talking about it. Just the image of being calf deep in human waste, that's exactly how it was written, was just gross. Like, truly. And I'm pretty sure McGrath was gagging throughout those scenes. It was real. The more I thought about it while we were recording it, the more I felt sick. So even though it was funny, I couldn't wait for that part to be over. But it was really funny. But even listening to it, I was like, oh God, we really sold it. They sound nauseated. All right. And what was the most fun thing you got to do with your character this season? So the most fun thing I got to do with McGrath, I think, was the whole episode where they went to the Olympics when they were in Paris. I personally love the Olympics. I always get super giddy and excited every 4 years when it's time again. I love the fact that she hated the Olympics, and she had her reasons. I totally understand. But I also always love when she gets the torture Bowden. And all the scenes where she was totally overtraining him and overextending him, and he had to practice with all these professional athletes. It was just really fun to boss him around. And I don't know, all the jokes were, I think, landing pretty well, at least in my head. I hope everybody feels the same way. Yeah, I would say that was one of the most fun moments, even though, again, I could pick so many others, so many. even like the first episode of the season where McGrath gets to execute her plan with Skip without the others knowing. It was really fun to know that they have a little secret code language between them. They know what's going on, but they can't really reveal it to anybody else yet. That was so fun. I mean, all of it is so fun. So fun. I love it. Oh my goodness. How can I forget Minnie McGrath? It was one of the highlights of the season. Minnie McGrath was one of the highlights of the season with all her cuteness. And I think we laughed after every line of Minnie McGrath. All of us.
All right. Well, sounds like we really put the cast through the ringer as usual. We've got two more questions for us. One, I think, is really for me. Remy from New Jersey asks, what came first, the Baby Whale song on Mission Rejected or the Baby Whale quest in Chris Klaniecki's D&D game? So Remy is a friend of ours who participates in Chris Klaniecki's Dungeons & Dragons game. Chris is an amazing DM. I play his game. Paige is in the game. Bob is in the game. So it is a Mission Rejected heavy game. And as a nod to that, we have had a long-running side quest for my character to raise enough gold to buy a baby whale that's going to take us to Tortlantis. So yes, Remy, the gag on Mission Rejected came first. Mission Rejected predates the D&D game by about 2 years. That gag came first.
I had no idea Baby Whale made it into Chris's D&D game.
Yes, and Chris put that in as a little Mission Rejected Easter egg for me and the other players. So that
if you want to hear the origin story of Baby Whale itself, go back to the season 1 interview that we did, and you'll hear all about it.
My fault.
Well, this is not a fan question, but this conversation does make me think. Pete, you as always had to write some additional original music this season.
True.
So what special songs we had? So you did Dungeons and Dragons music.
The Dungeons and Dragons was fun.
You did Christmas music.
Is that it? So I'll go through it in order because that's how my brain works. 501 and 502 pretty much recycled the old songs, despite the fact that some people were like, should there be a dark EMF theme song?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know what that would be. In 503, I had to write the theme song to Naked and Dismayed or whatever the heck the show was, John.
That was the title of the
easy. It's just a
episode.
couple jungle drums and whatever. You know, it was cheesy, like, you know, whatever it was. I also had to write an ad, I think, for Athena at some point.
Athena's
that was like music
yep.
there. 504 wrote the Murder She Plagiarized.
Yes,
theme
mainly
song,
murder. Yes.
Which, you know, again, I don't want to, maybe you cut this for the Patreon bonus, but like Mike and I are trying to figure out a way to maybe write the, you know, the spin-off that was promised of the Murder She Wrote, you know, spoof with Tess Thatcher. But I was like, well, I kind of really want to have a good theme song for that show if we go to it. And, you know, it's very Murder, She Wrote rip-off, but, like, that was the idea. That you're supposed to be envisioning that. Then, wrote, you know what, there's not much of it. I think I wrote a little bit of oh, no, I'm wrong. I'm entirely wrong. John, did you get a fanfare for Campbellton, the musical, which I completely...
Oh, yeah, that overture we pulled
that from
off
Free Sound.
You pulled that, so I'm not going to take credit for the overture I didn't write. I just remembered it was in there. 506, I'm pretty sure we used the usual stuff, right? It was action music, but it's the same old canned stuff, I believe. 507 was the... the Sergabian national theme song. John...
The Sergabian national anthem.
Gave me the assignment. Can you write the national theme song of Sergabia? Also, make it the worst song you ever heard.
It has to be. It has to be awful.
Thumbs up. And I had that. I wrote it in a made-up Sergabian language, My favorite
You
part
did
of the
indeed.
song is where I just decided that they would just degenerate into going fight, 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 which I decided the word for in Sergabian was brat, which I did not realize was German for bread.
German for bread.
So someone later was like,
It works.
"Did you know that you're just singing bread, 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 bread over and over again?" I'm like,
They
you
were,
know what?
If they
Works
were
for me.
German, they would be, but they are Sergabian.
That's
So
right.
they're
Yes,
saying
but this is
fight,
Sergabian.
fight, fight.
You wouldn't believe how meticulous I got with that. By the way, I was like J.R.R. Tolkien, like, and the etymology of the word in Sergabian comes from the web. Yeah, so it
Sounds like a great blog entry, Pete.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and then 508 was the D&D one, which not only came with the songs, but like I usually either go to freesound.org or I make my own sound effects. Like I'm very passionate about making our own sound effects for the show, except in the cases when we can't really get them. But in that case, I actually wanted a different quality of sound effect because I wanted the D&D sound effects to be like more cartoony and more sounding like they were canned sound effects. They were free, they were public domain sound effects, but they were much more of like pro end sound effects that to get those sword slashes and spells and whatever, because I wanted a qualitative difference between the sounds that were going on in the D&D universe as opposed to the actual world. And then 509, no extra music. 510, I wrote a little museum theme, right, John, to go into the spy museum. And then 511 was there's one more. So 511 was that great Christmas music. I thought it was great. I hope you enjoyed it, but I enjoyed making the Christmas music and the one thing I like about always doing the alternate Mission Rejected themes is that Mission Rejected theme itself is in two sections, right? You've got the orchestra section and the big band section, and then you got the marimba section, the quieter one. So every time I do a new theme, I have to decide what are the two parts of this, right? So like the Halloween theme is like big, booming haunted house thing, and then Stranger Things, right? That's the contrast of like what is that theme broken up into?
Wavy synth.
Exactly. And in the Dungeons and Dragons one, I had to write a theme, right? There was a Dungeons and Dragons theme song, so I think it's like very like, again, goblin army coming for you, and then like the angelic like creepy crypt like right. For Christmas, I think it's like a sleigh bell, right? It's like sleigh ride. Right?
Yep.
It's like,
and then the second part is like Carol of the Bells.
It's Carol of the Bells. That's right. That's what it was. It's Carol of the Bells. Okay. But then I forgot also the last part of the season that I had to write the Admiral playing the organ.
I don't know how you forgot
and
that.
Mike put so many. He's like, and then we play all the public domain Christmas carols. So I had the Admiral playing the thing.
It was very
God.
I can't say exactly what motivated me, but when I was writing 511, I wrote very specific music cues for the transitions. Right. There was a certain method to my madness because we were traveling in time, much like we did in the other Zelda flashback episode, Legend of Zelda.
That's right.
Where we had Bowden was what was switching us back and forth. But this is Zelda hallucinating that she's moving in and out of time, and then we're moving between scenes within those timelines. So I had to come up with a way to kind of signify what was what. And so the scene transitions, I said, should be Christmas carols, and then I just started dictating what I wanted those to be.
Right.
And you stuck pretty close to it, and I was really happy with it. But
so there's a Rat's Dominion version. It's not Rat's Dominion, but there's like a
So
rock
I
version of
also
We Three
that's
Kings.
right. Part of it was you had to establish what time you were moving into.
Right.
So when they go to Zelda's punk rock past, it's a punk rock version of God Rest You Merry Gentlemen or whatever it was. And then when you're moving into the present and you're underwater, it's the Admiral on the organ, right? And
which is one of my favorites because I like it starts off real dramatic because I wanted to be like the joke being like, oh, it's an organ. It's like it's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's like he's playing the organ, and then it goes into this like, as much as the best I can describe it is a baseball park version of Hark the Herald Angels Sing. It's just like, I'm like, I imagine the little old man with his hot dog at the ballpark being like, it was.
And then there was
Studebaker's lab has a fish
Yeah.
version of.
That's right.
Oh my God, what was it? God rest ye merry gentlemen, or something ridiculous. Like, that was also amazing. Yeah, that just like, it's so much fun. And when I say amazing, I'm not saying the product is amazing. I'm saying the process of making these songs is like, okay, what is Studebaker's theme party? Holiday theme party
I think
like?
I guess we actually did. There was the other one was the opening where Chet's at the White House Christmas tree lighting. It's the U.S. Marine Band. We actually
right,
took
with those really good actors impersonating the Quaid brothers.
John recently sent something to me from one of those pod tracking sites.
Yes,
that
Rafonic.
lists Randy and Dennis Quaid as appearing as themselves as guests in 511.
I was like, do we need to do something?
Well, someone nailed it.
Do we need to do something
we did
here?
so good that they couldn't tell.
So for that, we actually, because it's in the public domain, we were able to use the U.S.
military
Marine
band,
Band.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Which is what they would play at the White House, right?
You can use it because the song is in the public domain and it's a
And
U.S.
the recording. And the
government
band is in the public
entity.
That's
Yes.
right.
All right. Well, we've come to our last question. I think this one will be fairly easy to answer. Now, watch it. 2 hours later, we'll see. We'll see if I was right or not. Once again, Kim from Virginia asks, how long does it take to record an episode? We block 4 hours to record with the main cast. Sometimes we do it in less. Sometimes we run over. But let's say 4 hours, and we record on the penultimate Sunday of the month, the second to last Sunday of the month, and it comes out the last Friday of the next month. So essentially, it takes a month to put an episode together. That's not counting the time it takes to write it and get it, but from the record date to the release date is about a month. And so 4 hours with the cast, an hour here or there, 2 hours. If it's somebody like when we did OG, we spent 2 hours with him on 512 because it was a bigger thing. I spent, an hour or so with David doing Terry Millionaire, but it all adds up. So it's I would say 10 hours of recording time. And then
at least,
multiples of that in editing.
So it depends. It changes from episode to episode, but it is a lot of time.
Well, I think that the care that both of you put into the post-production really shows. The show sounds great. It was another delightful year. I can't wait to dive into season 6. Thank you all for sending in these great questions. Thanks to our cast for their thoughtful answers on those, the questions that were aimed at them. We've got a bit of a hiatus still to go. We've got a lot of exciting things planned to fill the hiatus, none of which are in a place to be announced yet, unfortunately. But trust us, we are working on some really fun things that are going to launch us into season 6, things we've been wanting to do for a long time, and some new ideas that we're looking forward to. So please stay tuned. There's going to be a lot. We'll announce it on our socials and, of course, on our Patreon. So thank you both for your time today. Thanks for your hard work on season 5. And we'll see you in season 6.
Thanks, everybody out there.
I can't wait to do the behind-the-scenes episode of season 6, all about how we adapted Dolby Atmos.
Can't.
Hey everybody, Michael with one more quick thing. Just a reminder that Patreon members got a 45 minutes longer version of this episode. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, be sure to join us there at www.patreon.com/missionrejected.
I'm just here to look pretty and tie-dye and answer questions.
Right. John's the eye candy.
Another quality podcast from the Porch Room.